The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Tasty Minstrel Games and Meeple Realty. Check out their awesome titles at playtmg.com, and for high-quality board game inserts, check out meeplerealty.com.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, it's The Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes are joined by some Duke City locals, David Roth and Matt Walker. The Dukes review Matagot's Inis. Then, we look back at our top 6 designers and our Dukes double take. And now, The Dukes of Dice. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And David.
And Matt.
Okay, that's the last time I will point to you guys to talk. As I just finished telling you, I won't be asking you guys to jump in, and then I realized, oh wait, I probably will just now.
I need instruction. I need direction.
Maybe
I can't do it alone.
Maybe a teleprompter or something. Just give us a cue.
So this is episode 127. I'm gonna let you Inish, but Pfister.
I like it.
Courtesy of our buddy Mike Risley. So, of course, we're talking about Inish. And one of the things I said on our Dukes on deck on the Board Game Geek Guild was that I suspect that Alexander Pfister will likely make mine and Alex's revised top 6 designers list. So he ran with it. Probably one of the most cringeworthy moments between
Kanye West and Taylor Swift.
Swift. There you go. Yeah, so I'm going to let you Inish, but Pfister, very, very clever. We actually name all of our episodes with the help of our awesome guild members over on our Board Game Geek Guild, guild number 2008. You can go join over there, subscribe, and get in on the conversation, which is pretty awesome. But hey, things are a little bit different today, right? I've got David and Matt. So one of the things that I wanted to do while Alex was gone was have some locals come in and fill in on some of the weeks. And so it's exciting to have you guys here.
I'm glad I could be fill-in substitute Alex for a week. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm going to do some push-ups and what is the exercise program?
Calisthenics. CrossFit.
CrossFit. Yeah.
I know calisthenics. I like it. Pilates.
Yeah. Tai Chi.
So we're going to get to know you guys just a little bit better so that everyone can kind of get a feel for who you are as gamers and why they should care or not care about your opinions. Or care. I'm just kidding. They should care. You should all care.
You shouldn't care about my opinions.
So a little bits of show business before we jump into the episode and find a little bit more about David and Matt. But we do have a Patreon account that you can support us at. It's patreon.com/Dukes of Dice. Just want to give a shout out to a brand new Knight of the Duchy, Bill Simone. Bill, thanks for your support, and thanks to all of our other amazing Patreon patrons. One of the things that we've done since we have reached certain goals on Patreon is we're doing these live Q&As, and we just had one with another local buddy, Matthew Ward, one of the 12 Matts or Matthews in our play group.
We are Legion.
Yes, indeed. And so you can go check that out on our YouTube page. And then also this coming Monday, so this episode drops Monday. So if you listen to this as it drops, you'll have time that night on January 23rd at 7:30 p.m. Mountain to join Duke, Suzanne, and I as we play Star Wars Destiny live. So you can come in, say you guys are doing something wrong, you guys are terrible at this game, or whatever. So I'm very excited for that. I've still yet to actually play Destiny. I have 2 Kylo Ren boosters or starters that friend of the show, Mike Canavan, actually a Patreon Duke, Mike Canavan, he found out in the wild and he's like, hey, do you want me to send these to you? I'm like, yes. So I'm excited. You guys play Destiny yet?
No.
I haven't played it yet, but it looks really cool.
Yeah, it looks very cool.
I don't need another dice card game in my life. L5R is going to come out again, and that's going to be it.
Yeah. So go check out that if you're so inclined. And speaking of YouTube, if you're not aware, we've been ramping up our video production on YouTube. And 2 reviews dropped this week. Ice Cool, the really cool dexterity game that we've talked about on the show, but is much better to actually see because it's really cool. And I'm amazing in it. I'm getting these amazing shots off that I wouldn't actually be able to get in real life. So, or actual, play. I normally suck. And then Hero Realms, which is a game that I am loving, absolutely loving. So if you'd be so kind as to go over to our YouTube channel, subscribe, get notifications, all those things, that would be fantastic. All right, well, let's talk about these 2 gamers. Tonight, Sean is joined by local gamers from the Duke City.
Let's meet them in the Gamer Spotlight. First up is David Roth.
So I guess I'm a bit of an omni gamer, but my main focus is on 1v1 type stuff. I really like that competitive aspect. So stuff like Yomi or competitive fighting games back when I used to do that. Mottainai at the 2-player count is one of my very favorites.
The ideal count.
Agreed, for sure. However, heavy Euros are also a nice thing for me. Stefan Feld is among the greats. And some Ameritrash here and there.
Yeah.
Blood Rage.
And you mentioned Legend of the Five Rings.
Oh, yes.
Which I'm
L5R is a pastime for me. It wasn't Magic. Not once. Not ever. It was L5R.
All right. Well, very cool, David. We're happy to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Next up, we have Matt Walker.
I'm a bit of an omni gamer as well, and over the last year or so, I think I've kind of progressed from more kind of medium weight, more family style games to a bigger interest in heavier Euro type games as well. My favorite game of all time is Power Grid. I love Power Grid. I'll play it all the time. Other games I like are Nations. I'm a big fan of Mage Knight board game too, as well. I tend to like games where you build something. I kind of like being able to look at the end of the game and see a game state, and I'm like, wow, I was able to put all that together. And that's really satisfying to me as well.
Let's get ready to podcast.
All right, well, we're going to talk about some recent plays, so now with a little bit of context, people will know what the heck you guys are talking about.
Well, I finally got a play of Alien Frontiers in, a worker placement, dice placement game that has been recommended to me time and time again, mostly by our friend Matthew Ward.
He is a big evangelist for Alien Frontiers.
He sure is. Pretty much every time I talk to him and I'm playing a worker placement that isn't Alien Frontiers, he asks me why I'm not playing Alien Frontiers.
He taught me Alien Frontiers. In fact, that was the very first game I played with Matthew.
Well, it's great. That's the good news, is that it was built up to be this wonderful, wonderful game, and it was. It was quick, which is something I really like in worker placements, and I don't know, I like the sci-fi theme. I'm big into old sci-fi, and so the planet quadrants or whatever being named after old authors was a nice touch. I didn't win, which was a bummer. I came close, and the one thing I was concerned about with the game is that does it have a kingmaker-y aspect from your experience?
I don't think I've played it 3 times now, and I don't think I've necessarily seen that, but I'm not to say that it couldn't be there.
We played it at 3, and it came down to the person in third deciding who came in first and second.
Yeah.
And so that was a bummer, but it wasn't. Maybe I'm just salty because I was the one that ended up coming in second. But I liked it. I liked the game quite a lot.
Yeah. Interesting resource management, interesting placement, because you're with a different dice. I always like dice placement because they're not just a worker, but there's some other value to their face value.
Yeah, and I really like the cards that allowed you to manipulate the dice face. I guess I feel like most dice placement games have abilities to do that, but I was glad to see that in this one.
So that's Alien Frontiers from GameSleuth and Clever Mojo Games. Matt, what about you?
Well, I played Star Trek Frontiers, not to be confused with Alien Frontiers.
I'm so confused right now. I can't keep them straight.
I know. It's it is basically a Star Trek retheme of Vlaada Chvátil's Mage Knight board game, which is one of my all-time favorite games. It's kind of interesting because we play cooperative. There are 4 captains to choose from. There's Cisco and Picard, and also 2 Klingon ships you can use. So it's kind of a cooperative mission between the Klingons and the Federation.
Are the Klingons named?
Yes, they
Okay.
are.
Do you remember who?
I cannot recall them off the top of my head.
Is it Gowron?
No. There's one that started with an M.
M.
And then there were 2 sisters.
Oh, the Duras sisters, Lursa and B'Etor.
Yes.
M. Who's a Klingon leader that starts with an M? I mean, there's Moog, Worf's fault. Anyway, go on. I'm going to look that up.
It was really cool. Mage. Well, the system is basically it's a bit of a deck builder, bit of an exploration game where you're trying to explore the galaxy, and you encounter Romulan warbirds and Dominion star bases, and eventually the goal of the game is to beat Borg cubes. We played the cooperative setup where at 2-player we have to find and defeat 3 different Borg cubes. you use the cards in your hand. They'll give you certain types of points for movement or attack or shields. The thing I really like about this game is that it's basically a big puzzle at its heart. You're given a limited number of resources and you have a goal in mind and you're trying to figure out how best to play those cards to accomplish that task. Matthew, I played with Matthew, and we've been kind of on a Mage Knight / Star Trek Frontiers kick for a couple of months now, and we actually won the scenario this time, which was a little bit of a challenge, and we didn't even cheat. Sometimes,
sometimes you got to cheat, right?
Sometimes you cheat a little bit because it's a long game and it's a little tough. But yeah, no, we did. It was great. It was a fantastic experience. Very, very, very similar to Mage Knight. If you played Mage Knight, you'll be able to pick up this game really easily. There are some slight changes in rules, specifically with how you handle encountering locations. You have to actually send an away team down to a planet, whereas in Mage Knight you just kind of barge into the castle and kill everybody.
Okay.
But yeah, it's really cool. I think you're really going to like it, Sean.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. By the way, is it Martok? General
Yes.
Martok? God,
That's it.
I can't believe I can remember that.
I'm confession, I'm not a big Star Trek guy. I'm familiar with it, but yeah.
I'm literally watching, not literally, I'm watching season 5 of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and Martok is all over that, and I completely blanked.
Yeah, I really like playing them as a character. Each character basically has the same deck of cards they start with, but they have one special card that's unique to them. Really like playing with them. It's actually funny. As Martok, I actually was able to recruit Riker, and he was aboard my ship, and he really helped me out with a bunch of diplomatic missions.
Yeah.
I was really able to, sweet talk all those people and to give them experience points.
Well, it's thematic because Riker did serve aboard a Klingon bird of prey in the Next Generation episode.
Oh.
So it totally works out.
Absolutely.
It was some sort of like diplomatic exchange of officers. Yeah,
perfect.
I love Star
Yeah,
Trek.
I had a really good time. I'm really liking it a lot.
Cool. Yeah, I'm very excited to give that a shot.
Does it feel like Star Trek, or does it feel like Mage Knight but plus Captain Picard and Riker?
The theme is really solid. It really felt like Star Trek to me. Yeah, I really did. The away missions help with that, and just the art takeover and the powers. Instead of blocking, you have shields in Star Trek, but you can't use them on an away mission, because your away team, of course, does not have ship shields and things like that. It really felt more Star Trekky to me.
Okay. I think I'm in. That sounds awesome.
Well, I've also got Star Trek Ascendancy, which I haven't played either, so I'm curious to play both.
Yeah, I'd like to play.
Contrast.
I'd like to play that one too.
Yeah,
that one looks
I
cool.
also am pretty interested.
Yeah, I know Jake over at Draft Mechanic and Danielle too. I think we're both big fans of both Star Trek games. And they're big Trekkies, so
It's nice to see Star Trek getting a little bit of love in the board game industry.
yeah, no, absolutely. All right, well, that is Star Trek Frontiers. I'm going to talk about Masmorra, Dungeons of Arcadia, which just fulfilled from Kickstarter, even though you could have bought it retail for like a month or two now. Whatever, Simon. But this is set in the world of Arcadia, which Arcadia Quest comes from, obviously. And this is different enough from Arcadia Quest that I think you can own both in the collection. Arcadia Quest is kind of a free-for-all PvP and PvE style game. Kind of feels like an arcade game where you're just running around, blowing up monsters, and loot pops out. This one, though, is not so much PvP, although there are ways you can interact with the other players, but it is certainly PvE. You're certainly running around this dungeon. You're exploring this dungeon, unlike in Arcadia Quest where everything's kind of already built out for you, and you're rolling a bunch of dice. It's a dice rolling, action selection type game. And on these dice, you have the ability to move, melee fight, range fight. There's a magic symbol, which can let you turn other dice into other things. There's a heal potion. And so all of these have kind of a primary function, and then there may be some secondary function based on abilities that you get as your character levels up in the game, in the actual scenario, not from round to, or from, game to game. Or there's some special rooms that might have you place dice in a certain way. This has been a lot of fun. This has the awesome Simon miniatures for the heroes, but it doesn't have monster miniatures. Instead, it's monster dice. So when you explore a room, it'll say, bring out a blue die or bring out an orange die, and you roll it. And then whatever face it lands on, that's the monster that's in there. And so there's some cool card play too that you don't really have in Arcadia Quest, where you're drawing these treasure cards that have one of two abilities on them, and when you play it, it says, play on your turn, and you can teleport to another room, or play on an opponent's turn, and all monsters they fight this turn have +1 defense. So there's a little bit of take that in there too. Mm-hmm. And I played this 2 players with Raquel, about a week ago, and then I played this last night, 3 players with her and Nick, and it was really cool. At 3 players, I think I liked it a lot more than 2. It plays up to 5, though, and I'm not sure that I want to play it with more than 3. There was enough downtime at 3 that 4 might seem like too much, and 5 certainly. I'm going to give it a shot because this will probably be reviewed at some point, and I have all the Kickstarter exclusives. I have a bunch of add-ons, so there's a ton of stuff. I can even take Arcadia Quest minis, and I have a conversion pack so I can play them here in Masmorra.
Nice.
But I'm really enjoying it. In fact, if you kind of want to take a look at all the components, you can go to our YouTube channel because I did do an unboxing of it, and I'll probably do a first impressions video of it pretty soon as well.
So I know this is like super early, but how are you feeling about it versus Arcadia Quest?
So Nick last night said he thinks he likes it more than Arcadia Quest. And if you were playing a one-off game, this is probably better because you're able to, like I said, level up your character throughout the gameplay and get more abilities. Whereas a lot of Arcadia Quest is you leveling up from scenario to scenario. So you need to play that campaign style. As we've played this last campaign with Nick, Max, and Jeremy, I've kind of liked Arcadia Quest a little bit less and less. It's on my top 10, but I think it may fall off this year when we redo our list in August. Not to say that I dislike it or think it's bad. I still really enjoy it, but I'm very curious to play with the new tournament rules that Simon had, because if you do a one-off game of Arcadia Quest, the gold is kind of, right now, with the normal rules, acquiring gold is worthless. Because, I mean, there's nothing for you to do with that gold. It's there for you to buy stuff in later rounds. So as a one-off game, I think Masmorra is certainly better. I'm going to have to hold off on any more direct comparisons, I think, until I play Masmorra some more. And then probably also try, like I said, the tournament rules for Arcadia Quest.
And who are the designers on that?
A bunch of people.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, there's like 4 designers, and they all have very French names, I believe. I remember typing them all into my unboxing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they're all listed there in my unboxing video.
I'll just go look and subscribe to your YouTube channel.
Oh, excellent. So yeah, that's Masmorra Dungeons of Arcadia. Really enjoying the first couple plays and excited to play some more, especially with all the Kickstarter exclusive stuff I have.
Cool. Yeah, I think Jeremy's bringing his Wednesday night to our meetup.
Oh, cool.
I think I'm going to try and give it a spin then.
Cool.
I've been looking forward to that one.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, well, I got in a play of Mottainai, a Duke's favorite. It was a 3-player game, which is not the ideal player count. However, I still like it quite a bit at 3.
Yeah, I do too.
I think it's pretty much a 2 or 3 player game. I ended up not winning. Bummer. It was interesting. The strategy that was employed by the winner was to basically prey and only play off of other people's abilities.
Interesting.
And I'd never seen that before, and it was like a kind of surprise win, and it was awesome to see. It was really cool. We had a new player, but he picked it up really fast. And I don't know. It's always a good time. I know this is blasphemous to some, but I like it better than Glory to Rome.
Oh well, yeah, I do too. I love Glory to Rome.
Yeah, absolutely. Glory to Rome is great. Mottainai is just this like design masterwork, in my opinion. It's unbelievable.
What I find interesting is that we've managed to cultivate an appreciation with a lot of locals here of Mottainai that is probably disproportionate to the rest of the world.
I think you're probably right. The game doesn't seem to be well loved by the community as a whole, which is a real shame. I think, and I really do think that comes from the clunkiness of learning it and picking it up. The first time I played it, I wasn't so sure about it, but as I played it more and more, there was something that kept bringing me back to it. Probably you guys.
Yeah.
It was probably like, hey, do you want to play this game that you didn't like again? And I was just like, yeah, okay, I guess. But I love it now, and I'm glad that you made me stick with it.
Yeah.
I hope that if you didn't enjoy the game, maybe you give it another try. It's worth it.
Maybe that's a theme that might come back later in the episode. Sometimes you need to give games a couple plays to really give them a chance.
I'm starting to think I should have looked at the show notes.
You didn't do your homework.
Yeah, Mottainai, absolute favorite. Carl Chuddick, masterpiece. We talk about it a lot. It's Mike Fitzgerald's favorite game, but other than that, it kind of flies under the radar for a lot of people. It's a bummer.
I got a play in of a game I'm pretty sure is on your shelf of shame, Sean.
Yeah.
And it was, I guess you might as well consider it on my shelf of shame as well, because I hadn't played it since April when I first got it.
But you've played it.
But I played it twice
fine.
now. That game is Star Wars Rebellion from Fantasy Flight Games. love this game a lot. Really like it. I was a little iffy after the first play as the Rebels, but my second play the other week as the Imperials, I really like it, even though I lost. So basically, the board is a map of the galaxy in Star Wars, and there's different systems on there, all the ones you recognize from the movies. The Rebels have a hidden base on one of those systems, and it's the job of the Empire to find the Rebel base and basically get rid of all the Rebels on it. They have a set number of rounds to do it. I believe it starts at 14. But the Rebels, not only do they have to stay hidden, but they have a few tools at their disposal. They have objectives they can complete, which shortens the round tracker. So towards the end, it gets really tense as the round tracker starts moving up during the game, and the Rebels round tracker starts going down. There's a whole lot of tension there. It's just really great. It's, can you find it in time? And if you find it in time, are you going to be able to conquer the Rebels? Like I said, I was the Empire. Unfortunately, I lost. I played with my buddy Adam. He had set his base on Endor, not far from my main base. And it took me a while to find it. And he was able to shorten the track quite a bit because he was sabotaged a lot of my systems. Your systems are, they let you build resources, the ones that are loyal to you. But he was able to send a team in and shut down production on 3 or 4 of my systems, stymied my production queue. So I had to move a lot of my fleet, all of my fleet, out of Coruscant, my home base, which he was able to hyperspace in there, and then revealed at the end of the turn. I thought I was doing so well. I flew out of there. I captured Chewbacca in Naboo, and I tortured him. I interrogated him, and he told me, gave up one of the potential locations for the base, and I basically had him cornered.
Chewbacca gave up info?
Well, when you torture him, when you use the pro droid on him, he'll do anything. And then, so I'd moved my fleet out of Coruscant to try and chase him. He hyperspaced in with just a few X-Wings into Coruscant. And I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter. Well, at the end of the round, he reveals an objective card. If he has presence in that system and I don't have any, he gets basically 2 points. It moves the round tracker down. And he gets to keep that card in his hand. So every round that he's in there and I'm not in there, he's shortening that round tracker by 2. And it was too much for me. I found him at the end, but he was able to relocate the base to the other side of the galaxy. Couldn't get there in time. But it was a blast. And the games I've played, there's always that really nice narrative in there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, you're retelling it not just like I did this and then did this, like mechanically, but like the narrative progression of it sounds really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Because each side has their own leaders, is what they're called. And the Empire starts out with Darth Vader and Palpatine and Tarkin. Rebels start out with Leia and Mon Mothma.
Is it human Tarkin or CGI Tarkin?
I believe it's human Tarkin. Okay. This takes place.
Thank goodness.
It's weird. Yeah, CGI. I don't know. When did CGI morph into human Tarkin? It takes place. I get Alderaan's on the map, so I guess it takes place before A New Hope.
Okay.
In the timeline. Okay. So yeah, but yeah, it's terrific. Again, Sean, I think you're really gonna like it.
I don't doubt that at all, and it's certainly it puts extra emphasis in the shame and Shelf of Shame.
I need to play this game. It's a 1v1 game. It's Star Wars. It's storytelling. I mean, come on.
I think it's right up your alley too.
It's been out for almost a year, and I don't get why this hasn't gotten to it.
Well, it's about a 3-hour game.
Yeah, but here it gets faster the more you play it.
It does. Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm really hoping they come out with some expansions soon.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah,
I think it's one that's difficult to get to the table. Just the 1v1 aspect and the length.
It is. Yeah, exactly. But I was glad I was able to get an opportunity to get it out. Had a great time.
Very cool. That's Star Wars Rebellion. Do me a favor, Matt. Watch the table hitting.
Sorry.
Because the mics are pretty good at picking that up.
That's right.
Hands in pockets. It helps. It helps.
So I want to talk about Mage Wars Academy, which, if you noticed last week, Arcane Wonders, who are the publishers, they're a brand new sponsor. So we've got Tasty Minstrel, and then we've got Arcane Wonders and Meeple Realty, and we're kind of alternating Arcane Wonders, Meeple Realty every week. So that way we only have two sponsors per episode, so we don't have a lot of commercials. But anyway, I wanted to play Mage Wars Academy. This was something I picked up at BGG Con. And a lot of people have been like, "You haven't played Mage Wars?" Because that's typically something that you would expect I would have played. 2-player tactical card game. But this is Academy, which is the more streamlined, more compact version of Mage Wars, which has been rebranded as Mage Wars Arena. So the full game Arena, this is just the card game with no tactical board elements, is Academy. And this is really interesting because you don't have a deck, you have a spell book. And they give you this little binder with pages, and you put your spells in. There's some spell book construction you can do. But Jared and I just played with the introductory setup, the suggested spellbook setup. and I was the mage and he was the beastmaster. And on your turn, you're able to go through your spell book and pick which spell you want to cast. So you're not shuffling, you're not looking something, drawing a hand and trying to find a card. It's like, no, I want to cast this particular spell. And ideally, you're casting a bunch of creatures because that's going to let you take more actions in a turn. You can only ever take one action with each of your creatures, including your mage or wizard or whatever. And so there's some interesting stuff. I mean, it's very intuitive if you've played a lot of these style games, a lot of these dual style card games, including Magic. And so there's some nice attacking concepts. Things kind of come in exhausted, so they can't attack the first turn. So a lot of familiar stuff that you'll see here. But I think being able to go through the spell book is certainly interesting. Knowing that I always have access to a spell if I want to, and not having to count on the luck of the draw. I like the luck of the draw in Magic. I like building decks in such a way that you're mitigating that and that you're kind of getting around that. But this is certainly a different way to play. And Jared, who he owns Mage Wars Arena, he hadn't played in a while, and so he really enjoyed Academy too. And it was fun. So I'm excited to kind of play this a little bit more. I know with Academy, they're just kind of starting to get expansions out. What's nice is all of the Academy cards are compatible with Arena. That's not necessarily true going the other way, but at least Academy, you can build up to Arena. So it's something I definitely wanted to try because it was kind of a blind spot in my gaming, given my interest and given my taste in games.
So you hadn't played either one?
I hadn't played either one before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask which you liked better because I actually like Academy better.
Oh, do you?
Out of the two. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think about Academy then in general?
It's a really clean game. I actually like getting rid of the deck a lot. It makes it feel really unique. I kind of feel like I have a lot more control that way.
Sure.
It always sucks to lose an L5R or Magic when it's like, man, I just needed to draw better than this.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, obviously, as you said, deck construction is a part of playing the game.
Right.
But you can still get hosed even if you built your deck just fine. So it's a really interesting way, an interesting take on how to fix that. I like the game a lot. And Academy's streamlining, getting rid of the board area in front of you, I really prefer, to be honest.
Okay.
It really cleans the game up.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely want to try Arena, but I'm very interested in exploring more of Academy. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. All right, well, that's going to do it for our recent plays. Let's head on over to the news desk. So Days of Wonder, now under the umbrella of Asmodee, has fully announced or officially announced their 2017 release. It's called Yamatai. And I saw this at BGG-Con, but it was still very much in prototype form. And there weren't any pictures of what the finished product was going to look like, but that's all out now. They released in a press release, they released photos, they released the rulebook, and this thing looks awesome. It's designed by Bruno Cathala and Mark Pakien. I don't know if I said that right. Mark, I guess this is Mark's first game. I looked him up on BGG, and I didn't see any other games to his credit. So it's themed in a legendary Far Eastern kingdom that's governed by the majestic Queen Himiko. In Yamatai, players have to complete a delicate mission, build the most prestigious city of the kingdom. To accomplish this ambitious task, players transport various resources through the islands of the archipelago and collect culture tokens or raise buildings and monuments. Recruiting specialists and using their powers will constitute a decisive strategy for each builder to ultimately obtain Queen Himiko's favors. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see any of the press release or look at pictures.
I saw the art. The game is gorgeous.
Yeah.
I mean, this is Days of Wonder. It's expected, but it is fantastic looking.
Yeah. Absolutely beautiful illustrations and components.
Yeah. Mechanically, is this the one that everyone's saying is a new 5 tribes?
I think so. I read the rulebook. And one thing that I found interesting about this rulebook and the 5 Tribes rulebook is they're both pretty simple rulebooks. And I know as far as I'm concerned, there's a tremendous amount of depth in 5 Tribes. And I feel like this is probably going to be the same. Basically, each round, one of the first thing you have to do on your turn is select a ship type. Mm-hmm. And that's going to determine what's the different ship types have different special actions or special abilities. And then you're kind of delivering stuff to different islands. You're able to build things. You're able to recruit these specialists. So yeah, it seems very much like a spiritual successor to 5 Tribes, at least from my reading of the rulebook. And I love 5 Tribes. Mm-hmm. It took me a while to get there. Hey, continuing that theme of give games chances.
Five Tribes has always been one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's great. So
Yeah.
this is something I'm really excited for.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I really like Cathala games as well. And I'm also kind of an easy mark for Days of Wonder games too.
Yeah.
Because the production's so top notch on it.
I'm very excited for Yamatai. And so that this should be coming out in Europe and the US in May of this year. So I will definitely be checking this out. I'm sure you'll see a Duke's review of this.
Yeah, I'm eager for it too.
Hey, do you guys remember any of those marble sets where you would like build up these like plastic like loop-de-loops and there's like little like chutes and then you drop the marble and it kind of go down and
Sure.
you
Yeah.
ever do those?
I don't think so.
No?
I played Marble Madness.
Okay.
It's like the tilt marble game, but I don't think that's what you're talking about.
No.
The way you're looking at me right now with disdain.
I remember Marble Madness. No. So there was like a plastic one, like all these little like plastic tubes that you connect together. But then there was also one that had like these like plastic rails.
Oh, interesting.
I never had the plastic rails one.
Yeah, I don't remember the rails.
But anyway, Think Fun, which so Think Fun, they do a lot of like family and children's card games and other type games. They do the Rush Hour game that's kind of like that puzzle game. They have some puzzly games too, where you're trying to like move these cars in a traffic jam. They have a game coming out called Roller Coaster Challenge. And there's not much known about this game, but it was on their Facebook page. So if you go to Think Fun's Facebook page, there's a video of basically one of those old, and I mean, I'm talking like I was playing this in like the mid 80s, things where you're setting up this game, or it wasn't a game, it was just an activity, and you put the marble in and you have it go through. And so it's a roller coaster challenge, right? I don't know, is it a game? Is it just bringing that back? But it hit a nostalgia point for me. I'm like, oh, I used to love that. And then I would, like, when I was in my teens, I would just find random pieces of it and all sorts of stuff. I don't know. Does that sound interesting at all?
Yeah, it definitely sounds interesting. The kind of things I would play with a lot when I was a younger person. You know, when I was about that age, we had this thing called Domino Rally.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you remember that, but it was basically a bunch of plastic dominoes you could set up, and then you'd set them all up, and you spend hours and hours doing it. Then you knock them down, and 30 seconds later, you get to do it all over again.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, stuff like that is I've always found interesting. So, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm imagining, because it's called Roller Coaster Challenge. So I'm imagining it's kind of like they're going to give you a setup, like try and set this up or try and accomplish this or something. I don't know how much of a game it's going to be or if it's going to be more of an activity, but I just find it interesting that that's kind of, I don't know if is that even still around? Like, can you just buy?
I have no idea. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen anything like that.
I don't
It sounds
think so.
interesting.
There's a game at Empire called, I think it's called Marble Maze or something like
Gravity
that.
Maze.
Gravity Maze, yeah. That's I don't know if that's the same thing, not seeing it, but you have these different cubes, and the cubes will they have different openings on the sides, and they'll redirect your marble a certain way, and you have a challenge to use those cubes and build them up, and then run a marble through it and get to the end. And it's kind of a puzzle game. It's pretty interesting.
So you can still buy these. They're called Marble Run, and I'm looking on Amazon right now, and there's a bunch of them. I mean, they're like $25 to get like a starter kit. Oh man, I really don't want to buy this for Chewy because we're going to find these pieces everywhere. But I kind of want to buy this for Chewy.
Are you going to try to live through Chewy?
Yes, yes,
goal?
That's the goal. Yeah, the goal is that she's going to become like a WWE professional wrestler.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
And she's going to be rich because we call her She-Hulk because she's really strong and she's really tough. So that's the goal. And then she's going to buy me a house. It's going to be awesome. So yeah, so that's Roller Coaster Challenge from Think Fun. Hey, let's talk about Kickstarter. You guys want to do that?
Let's do it.
So have you guys looked into Delve from Indie Boards and Cards?
I have not had a chance yet. I remember Matthew mentioning it on the Q&A the other night.
Yeah.
And but I haven't had a chance to check it out yet. It sounded interesting from what he was saying.
Fill me in on this.
Okay, so it's Richard Launius, right? Arkham Horror and
Good
a
start.
billion
Yep.
other games.
Mm-hmm.
And Pete Shuri, he's the, I think he's like the marketing director, or just something for Simon. And he had a game, I think it was called like Shark Island. I haven't played it. So they're the creative team on this. And it is a dungeon crawl, sort of, but it's more of like a tile laying game. And it's kind of a Carcassonne meets dungeon delving. But it's not, I'm not just saying that just because there's tile laying. You are tile laying, and then you have these different adventurer tokens, multiples, like you would have multiple Meeples and Carcassonne, and you're actually placing them in certain rooms. And when a room gets completed, if there are multiple adventurers in there, you kind of all work together. If it's just you alone, then you have your own separate encounter. And it's asymmetric because you have different races. There's like the Wraith, there's the forest folk, the sellswords, and the kobolds. And so they all have kind of different strengths and weaknesses. So it looks really interesting. It's like I said, it's kind of merging two different genres or mechanisms. So it looks pretty cool. So from their Kickstarter page, it says, brave delvers from across the realm have journeyed to seek their fortune within the dungeons of Skull Cavern. Gold, treasures, and perilous encounters await behind every door. Grab your gear, sharpen your swords, and watch out for those kobolds, those pesky, pesky kobolds. So yeah, it sounds really interesting to me. I'm absolutely going to back this.
This sounds really cool. I think I might back this after this recording.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out.
So big fan of indie boards and cards. Almost everything they've put out, I'm a huge fan of.
Agreed. Yeah.
I mean, I love the Resistance stuff, the Avalon. The new one, the Grifters, that came out Gen Con
great.
last year is
Super
fantastic.
good. I love that game.
Yeah, Nick turned me on to that, and I picked that up. So this looks good. Good design pedigree, interesting play. I like this idea of it's like dungeon diving Carcassonne. So if you're interested in picking this up, it is $38. There's no additional shipping here in the US, so that's nice for those of us here. There, you could do $45 if you want to get the base game and the Peril Awaits expansion. So, I mean, I figure I'm like, $7 more, I'll probably do that. This is still kind of just barely outside of the range I like to back stuff on Kickstarter, unless it's a Cool Mini or Not project. But I'm like, yeah, it's any board and cards, so I'm pretty sure this will be a pretty solid game. It's met its funding goal, $37,000 as of the time of recording of its $30,000 goal. February 15th is when this ends, so you'll have a little bit of time to go check that out. But yeah, I'm definitely in on this. All right, well, that's a look at our Kickstarter of the week, and that's going to do it for the news. Happy New Year, everyone, from the Dukes of Dice and our partners over at Tasty Minstrel Games. TMG has an insane release schedule planned for 2017, with games like Yokohama, the Amun-Ra reprint, Coliseum Emperor's Edition, Downfall, and more. But if you can't wait for some of these upcoming titles, there's of course all their recent releases, including Guilds of London, Ponzi Scheme, and of course the Feldmas favorite Oracle of Delphi. Plus they have an amazing catalog of games like Eminent Domain, Dungeon Roll, Orleans, and so many more. Truly, there is a TMG game for every type of gamer out there, and for every type of playgroup that you might participate in. So point your browser, head on over to playtmg.com to check out all their amazing titles. Today, the Dukes look at this oft mispronounced game, Inis. How does this Celtic area control, area majority hybrid game stack up? We'll find out. So, Inis, designed by Christian Martinez, published by Matagot Games, or I don't know if it's Matagot, Matagot. I keep hearing both. I feel like it's Matagot.
I think it's Go.
I feel like the T's silent.
Matagot.
Yes.
So this is an interesting Celtic-themed area control game where you are trying to assert dominance over the other clans. So you win in one of three ways. Either by having presence in 6 different areas of the board, by being present where there are 6 sanctuaries, which are these cool little miniature pieces, or if you are the chieftain over 6 or more enemy clans, you're going to win. And it's kind of interesting. You have to say uno. You basically have to, on your turn, take an action to say, I could win at the start of the next turn. And that puts everyone on notice, and then everyone has to kind of try and stop you from doing that. Now, the main mechanic in this game is card drafting and card play. So at the start of a round, you're going to draft a total of 4 cards, and there's an interesting draft style here where you're able to give up cards that you've previously taken. So let's say I have my initial 4 cards, I keep 1, I pass the other 3, then I get 3 new cards. I look at all 4 of these cards, the previous 1 plus the new 3, and I'm able to keep any 2 of them and then pass, and so on until everyone has drafted 4 cards. Kind of an interesting twist on a drafting mechanic. Now, when the drafting's done, you're going to get to actually take turns playing cards. And the way the board is set up, there are these very interesting jagged terrain pieces. And they all fit together perfectly, and you don't think that they would. You would think that they're not going to line up right, but they fit together perfectly. It's really crazy. So you start with a different region, 1 for each player on the board, and each of these regions might have some special ability, but there's also a corresponding yellow terrain or region card that you might be able to claim if you're the chieftain of that region. At the start of a turn, if you have more clans in that region than anyone else, you're going to get to claim that card. Everyone's going to start with 2 clans of theirs on the board. There's going to be a starting capital, which is going to have the capital building, which is a type of citadel, which is going to offer some protection during clashes. It's also going to start with a sanctuary, which is getting you along to that win condition that we talked about. Once the board's set up, we've drafted our cards, we start playing cards. So in turn order, you're going to play a card that might add some pieces to the board. You're going to play a card that might move pieces around. You're going to play a card that might go exploring a new region. So you flip over a new region, you see what it does, and that's pretty much the card play. It's fairly simple. There are some other things that are going to let you draw these epic tale cards. There are some cards that might let you move without initiating clashes, because generally when you move into a region, if it's occupied by your enemies, you're going to start a clash. Clash is pretty simple. In fact, most of this game is pretty simple, which is surprising. So in a clash, one player who started the clash is known as the instigator. Everyone else is then able to, in turn order, jump into any available citadels. Basically, any figures they can put in citadels are going to be protected for the rest of the clash. Then, starting with the instigator, they have the choice of either attacking, withdrawing, or playing a special Epic Deeds card. If you attack, you pick who you're attacking. The attacked player can either then remove one of their clans from the region that's not in a citadel, or they can discard one of the green action cards as kind of attrition. And you can keep going until you wipe someone out, or at any point, for the most part, players can all agree, hey, we're cool. Let's just stop fighting. So you can even move in and everyone can agree, yeah, we're not gonna fight. The clash has to start, but you don't necessarily have to fight. And that's kind of an interesting mechanic here. And there are times when you're going to want to, there are times when you're not. But that's going to continue until someone claims that they can meet one of the objectives. At the beginning of the turn, you're going to see if they can still complete that objective. If there are multiple people that can complete one objective, it doesn't matter if one of them can complete it better than someone else. What's going to matter is if one of the players is the Bren. The Bren is the player who's the chieftain of the capital territory. If they are tied, the Bren wins. If non-Bren players are tied, the game just keeps going. However, let's say that I've achieved 2 objectives. I have 6 territories that I'm present in, and I am present where there are 6 sanctuaries. And then, David, you only have 1 of those objectives, and you're the Bren. I still win, because I've completed 2 objectives to your 1. So that's the short of it of how you play Inish. What are your initial thoughts?
I think the first thing that needs to be said is this game is gorgeous.
Yes.
It is
absolutely
outstanding looking. It not only does it set itself apart, but it's just both the board art, in my opinion, and the cards are incredible.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's 2 very different art styles, too.
It's 2 very different artists.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
well, yeah. And I mean, one is the landscape pictures, and then one is the we were kind of talking about this last night. I'm not sure what that art style is. Is it something you'd see on like tapestries, like medieval tapestries?
I don't know. It's kind of like a line art illustration type.
Yeah.
Which is very appealing as well. Whereas the landscape tiles are more painterly.
Right.
And I've read some people don't really like that juxtaposition of those 2 styles, but I think they both work really well together.
As far as initial thoughts on gameplay, I mean, this is kind of your dudes on a map hybrid game that we've seen a lot with Kemet or Blood Rage or Scythe.
I'm not a huge dudes on a map fan, but the way this game works really appealed to me. I really like the card drafting and the balance and the way the clashes work too. That really kind of drew me to it. Some dudes on a map games can be a little too aggro for my taste, personally. But this one has a really clever balance of that, I think.
I'm a huge Dudes on a Map fan, and this game is probably the cleanest I've played. It's very elegant. Everything makes a whole lot of sense. All the actions are relatively simple and quick. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
This is typically the type of game that I'm going to love. Kemet's my number 1 game. It's that dudes on a map hybrid. I enjoy Blood Rage. I love Scythe. Cyclades, one of my favorite games too. Cry Havoc. This is certainly that type of game that I would expect to just be a huge fan of. And ultimately, I'm just kind of meh on it. I'm kind of disappointed. I was really looking forward to this game. I was really expecting to like this a lot. I think it's good, and I agree with just about everything you guys have said. It is very clean. As far as the Dudes on a Map game goes, it is very clean. There is a ton of interesting decisions. There are plenty of opportunities to feel clever in this game, which is something that I enjoy. but for some reason there's still going to be something that's left wanting for me, and we'll see if I can kind of work through those thoughts.
I think the main takeaway from this game, for me at least, is that it's the most subtle dudes on a map game.
Yeah, I would agree with
that word really sums it up for me.
Yeah.
It isn't this big aggro game like Kemet or
Right.
Blood Rage. It's this really subtle. I don't know. I almost feel like a rogue sometimes with my strategies and what I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to outthink everyone.
Sure.
And I don't get that from the other dudes on a map games I've played.
Yeah, no, I think I would agree with that completely, because there are so many. It's not just push all your pieces together and roll a bunch of dice. There's no dice in this game. It's very much a game of attrition where, okay, I attack you, you either discard a card or get rid of a dude. Do we really want to keep doing this? Do we? Because I could hurt you, but you're going to hurt me back. Maybe you withdraw. Maybe, you're chieftain of an area and you're able to withdraw to that during a clash, and that's going to set you up to move more guys out of that area later. And so, yeah, there is a lot of subtle nuance play to this.
Do you feel like that brings attention that you don't feel in other dudes on a map games? When I play a dudes on the map game, most of the time, it's pretty clear who's doing well and who's not doing so well. And in Inis, it always kind of feels like, oh man, everyone's close. And I mean, it's obviously that way by design, but it creates this really interesting feel that I don't get from other dudes on a map games, where I'm actually tense while playing and thinking about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that tension.
I love
that's
it.
what I find very appealing about it, because I've been in those dudes on a map games where I'm not doing well and everybody else is, and I'm kind of stuck there for another hour while everyone just kind of decides who's going to win, and I'm not in it. But this one, I never felt out of it during this game at all, and there's always an opportunity there. And there have been a couple of games where I thought I was out of it, but I was able to pull out a win at the very end.
I mean,
as well.
I've seen players erased from the map and then come back to win in Inis.
yeah.
So you're never out of it, and that
No.
I really like that tension that it creates.
And I think that's a mark of a good design, because I think that's often the case in Kemet. That's often the case in Cyclades.
Agreed. Yeah.
I don't know that that's the case in Blood Rage.
It's not.
Because
It's
there are
not.
times
It's
when you're
definitely
just...
not. I love Blood Rage.
Yeah.
I love Blood Rage, but it's definitely not the case
Yeah.
in Blood Rage.
Right.
So yeah, I that tension is definitely here, and that's an enjoyable tension for me. And knowing, I mean, just keeping everyone kind of apprised of the board state. This person could win over here. Oh, this person could win over here. And it's interesting. And this is almost like the Seven Wonders duel for Alex, in that it has like all the things, the designers, the gameplay length, everything that he should have loved that game, and he doesn't. And I feel like there's a lot of things here that, even as I talk about, I'm like, I really like that. Yeah, I agree with you here. I agree with you here. And for some reason, it's just not getting put together the right way for me.
How many plays of this have you gotten, Sean?
I've only had 3. So I've played this at 2, I've played this at 3, and I've played this at 4. And when I played it at 2, I was like, I'm not crazy about this, but I don't think it's meant to be played at 2.
Yeah, I don't
Probably
think so.
better at 3 and 4. I played this at 4, and it was kind of brutal. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit more in gameplay. Some issues with player count, some issues with all of that. Issues on my end, and kind of, positives, I think, more from your guys' end, because it sounds like initially you guys are liking this a little bit more, or a lot more than I am.
Yeah, it sounds that way.
Yeah. So let's talk about the rule book. Did you guys have a chance to go over the rule book?
I did indeed. It was clean. It was clear.
Hold on. Wait, I'm not used to someone else actually having read the rule book on the podcast. Just give me a second. Okay. All right. Go on.
I read the rules. I did it. I didn't read the show notes, but I read the rules. No, the rule book was great. I had no questions after reading it. Everything was explained well. I mean, a lot of the game is on the cards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you just interpret what's on the cards and go from there, pretty much. The initial setup's really all you needed.
Yeah, there are lots of illustrated sidebars and pulls out that show examples of situations that occur, and few edge case scenarios that are addressed as well. Also, inside the front page, there's kind of a description of each of the background of those epic deed cards, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. No, it's a very solid rulebook. I think that's one of the biggest things this game has going for it, is it's such an easy teach. So I think of a game like Kemet. I mean, of course, we're comparing this to Kemet, at least I am, to Kemet and Cyclades a lot, because they're all Matagot games. They're all these dudes on a map hybrids.
It's a trilogy of games,
yeah,
really.
Yeah. And so this is such an easy teach. I mean, we could set this up. I could teach someone this game, and we're off to the races in like 5-10 minutes.
I taught
tops.
a brand new player whose only modern board game that he had played was Arcadia Quest.
Okay.
Which is kind of a weird pick for
Yeah.
for modern game that he's played. But I think I taught it in 10 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And we were off.
Right.
And he had no questions. He understood it.
Sure.
So
Now compare that to Kemet or Cyclades,
Oh, no
and
way.
we've got like a 25 minute
absolutely.
teach.
Mhm.
Kemet, I have that teach down, but it's still, there's just so much stuff to get across. And that's not even going over all of the different power tiles. It's just, there's just so much like, okay, well, then this happens, and then you have to do this, but if this happens, you have to do this. And that goes back to that clean design. And that it is so much about the card play, and it is about the subtle gameplay. So rulebook is great, and it's overall an easy teach. So, well, we kind of mentioned the art before in our first thoughts, and I mean, this is another one of the strengths of this game. I mean, this game is beautiful. We talked about the different art styles. The component quality, I think, is incredible. I mean, Matagot is known for its great production. Like I said, those region tiles, right? They're jagged. They don't look like they should fit together, or it looks like, well, if I put these two together, it's going to make it so a third piece can't fit up here. No, it does.
it's the design of those region tiles is brilliant because they made them into those weird leafy puzzle pieces because you have to slide the board around so
Right.
much. And since they interlock, when I have to pull the board to add another piece, it's great because the whole board just slides. It doesn't come apart. I don't have to get multiple people to help me move it. It just moves by itself. It's great.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It's really cool the different ways those tiles can fit together too, because they just seem to fit in ways that you don't quite think they're going to fit, and you can position them just slightly differently too, and they still fit. It's really amazing.
So they're completely uniform tiles, but the way they fit together can be a little funky, which is really cool. And it just doesn't seem like it should work.
Yeah, they're kind of triangular shaped, and so you kind of want to tessellate them a little bit, but you don't always have to.
Yeah.
Which is it makes some really interesting map layouts.
So the minis, I mean, they're just the small minis. They're not like the full size minis, but I think there's like 3 or 4 sculpts.
There's 4.
There's
Yeah.
4. Yeah.
And they're really high quality sculpts for this size of mini.
They're very nice, and actually it's kind of cool thematically, being a little more of a peaceful type of dudes on a map game. They're not all soldiers.
Yeah.
There's like a woodcutter and a shepherd and someone else, but I thought that was really cool to have figures in what you usually find kind of an aggro dudes on a map game, to have figures that aren't those people. They're just kind of peaceful migrants trying to travel the land.
And because there's a lot of emphasis on coexistence in this game. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
Absolutely.
you're not necessarily wiping someone off a region.
Right.
You're coexisting, and so I think that fits there.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a
absolutely.
little bit thematic, but also the sculpts kind of emphasize that point as well. Now the cards are the big kind of tarot cards. They're actually bigger than tarot cards.
Yeah, I think they are.
Which is nice because you get to see the text is easy to read, but then you get to see this beautiful art on it.
Lovely.
Absolutely.
Unique illustrations on each one, and the epic detail cards are just amazing.
Yeah,
Just
outstanding.
super psychedelic, supernatural Celtic myth things are just awesome.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then you've got the other minis as far as there's the citadels where your clans can jump in and hide when a clash starts, and you've got the sanctuaries, and Jared actually painted his up.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
I bet that looked great.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it looks really super. There's enough detail on those that they do stand out. They don't just look like lumps of plastic. They're really
Oh,
solid.
nice.
Yeah, I really thought that the towns, the citadels, and the sanctuaries both looked great. Even unpainted, they look great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree. So as far as production goes, I mean, I think this is an incredible production.
I
Just
mean,
incredible.
I feel like Matagot almost always knocks it out of the park
Yeah.
on
Mhm.
production. I
Oh,
don't think I
absolutely.
can think of a Matagot game where I was disappointed. But yes, Inish in particular really, really is great.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, well, let's really get into the meat of the gameplay here. I talked about I like when games make me feel clever, and there's certainly a lot of this. There's certainly a nice mix of long-term strategy and tactical decisions from round to round or turn to turn. I'm always interested in what I'm doing in this game. I'm always jockeying for position or always trying to, be where I need to be. And it's all very fulfilling in terms of the puzzle and in terms of my head, but I don't know that I was necessarily having fun with it. And it's weird because those should all, that's typically fun for me. And I don't know what was missing there.
Okay, I loved this game.
Yeah.
Both at 3 and 4. I never played it at 2. Like I said, that tension's there, and it's great. What's so interesting to me is because of the 3 different win conditions, you really have to be paying attention to everyone
Yes.
at all times. There is no, they're out of it. I don't need to pay attention. And you really have to draft accordingly. That's a really important part. And the interesting strategic passing is something in this game that I really, really
Yeah.
like. I'll hold on to cards to make sure that people expend cards so that when I invade, they don't have green cards to discard when I
Right.
need to, get them out of the territory. Or I'll pass to see the Geist played. The Geist is basically a counter spell.
Counterspell.
Yeah, that allows you to just say no to someone's ability.
Right.
And that makes things interesting. Another interesting aspect of this game that I don't believe we talked about in the rules explanation are the deeds.
Right.
They're some tiles, and they basically count as +1 towards your win condition, or -1 alternatively, I suppose. So for the presence in 6 different areas, you'd only need 5 if you held a deed. And that number can go down depending on how many deeds you have.
Oh yeah.
Now, the thing that's most interesting about deeds, I think at least, is that they're not really given out for free. There's one card, I believe, in the green deck, the main deck, that allows you to pick up deeds. It's the card,
two at 4 players.
2 at 4?
Yeah, there's 2 of them at 4 players.
And then there's, I believe, 2 in the Epic Tale cards.
I think it's 2, yeah.
So that makes those cards both important to hate draft or regular draft. You really want to be looking out for those. And it makes playing towards the conditions in which you can actually gain the deeds very important.
Absolutely.
Like if you get the Bard, you want to make sure that you're also playing for combat that round, because the deed condition is you have to attack someone,
right,
and actually make them lose a clan.
In the games we played, I feel like the deed cards were very often the target of the counterspell.
Absolutely. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. I think something that's kind of important is to try to get a deed early. I think people don't pay attention to the deeds as much early in the game. So I think it's definitely important to try to get them earlier on.
Well, last game I played last night with Nick and Raquel got a second turn deed. And she had to get wiped off the board for it to happen, or not wiped off the board, but wiped off this region. And she was like, "Oh no, this is terrible." And Nick and I were like, "No, you just won the round."
Yeah,
like,
it's worth it.
That's totally solid.
Yeah,
that tactical passing is really important to I think too. And because one of the things is you can pass and still come back in, unless everyone passes in succession. You can still come back in.
Yeah, I really like that tension, knowing when you should pass. And I've been on the receiving end of getting totally passed when I've tried to strategically pass, and you just kind of toss your cards and hope for next round it works out. But yeah, it's a little bit of pushing your luck sometimes, especially if you're really close to a win condition.
Well, last night I had a situation where I could very sneakily get in with two objectives. I had to pass, and I just needed Raquel to do anything. All she had left in her hand, though, were 2 reaction cards. So there's the season cards and the Triskel cards, right? Mm-hmm. Season cards are a full action. The Triskel cards say play when this happens or play when this happens. And so it's not a full action. So she's like, well, I have to pass because I can't play anything. And then it was basically game over because Nick wound up winning.
One of the cool things is the swamp territory. The advantage card you get with that lets you play that advantage card as a pass, but it's not really a pass.
Right.
Yeah, so you can pass, and if everybody else passes, you're still in it.
So those territory cards, you think about it, you have the green action cards, you have the reddish pink epic deed cards, and then you have the territory cards. So there's incentive for you to be chieftain in multiple areas. So it's not just incentive to fulfill these different conditions, but to maybe, I could be chieftain here, which doesn't really help me for certain goals, but it's going to give me access to this one yellow territory card. And so I like that there are so many different considerations. I mean, if it were just the green cards, and maybe just the epic deed cards, it would probably be fine. But that extra consideration, that extra incentive to be chieftain of certain areas, I think is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. With how clean this game is, there's a whole lot of depth here. It's really impressive.
Absolutely.
It's really, really impressive.
Yeah, it's a very clever addition, I think.
Yeah. So you guys like this more than I do, right?
I think so. I played it at 2, 3, and 4 players. I think 3-player is kind of the sweet spot for this game. 2-player was okay, but I think there are other 2-player games that kind of do a similar thing.
Sure.
But I enjoy a lot more, like Samurai, the Reiner Knizia game, sort of an area control type thing. But yeah, I liked it quite a bit, especially since I'm not really a dudes on a map guy.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's definitely earned a place in my collection.
I played at 3 and 4. I liked it at both player counts.
Okay.
At 3, the game really moves along in a nice clip. It's fun. It's fast. I really like that. From my experience, the games last about an hour to an hour and 20 minutes, even with teaching and breakdown afterwards.
Sure.
And again, the depth of strategy and the number of decisions I'm making feels really, really rewarding.
Yeah.
At 4, it definitely bogs down a little more. It's a little longer. They add some more cards in, and it's not quite as good. There is a big part of this game that we haven't discussed yet, and I'm sure Sean is really excited to bring this up, is that it definitely has a lot of stopping the winner, or I don't want to say king making, but sort of.
Beat up the leader.
Yeah, well, knock down the leader, because you always need to be looking out for who has the possible win condition.
Right.
And at 4, that's going to be pointed out more often. It's going to be happening more often, and so it's definitely about making sure that you have the cards to stop that,
right?
Or at least have the cards to tie it up, or something like that. And that you're going to run across that a lot more with 4 people at the table.
I think so. It's kind of that Munchkin effect, right?
Right.
Where
Yeah,
you're beating up on that leader. And so I agree that at 4 players, that even all other things being equal, I feel like 4 players is going to be disproportionately longer than a 3-player game.
Absolutely,
because you have more opportunities to thwart the leader.
I mean, my 4-player games still weren't super long. I think I played about 2 hours with my 4-player games. And they were still highly enjoyable. The game didn't overlast its welcome. I really liked it, and yeah, it'll be staying in my collection as well.
So last week we observed a 3-hour 4-player game. I played in another 3-hour 4-player game, which wasn't, I don't think, just a product of the player count. I think it was also, this game has a wide, at least in my opinion, it has a wide variance in terms of that playtime. You can certainly have short plays of this. And I think you can also have really long, sloggy a word? Sure, it is now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would
plays.
Describe the game I witnessed on Wednesday night a slog.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how long it was taking you guys to get through it. It was, honestly, one thing I do worry about is having an experience like that with this game, because as great as I do think the mechanics are in this game, is if I had a game that long, it's not deep enough for me to enjoy a game of that length. It needs to stay shorter. Mm-hmm. And I mean, while I haven't had that experience myself, I did witness it, and apparently online some people were saying similar things. Do you think AP was a part of it at all?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that certainly I could look at the game and I could probably attribute some percentage of time to some AP issues, but not a significant enough amount that basically if you just happen to have the answer to something to stop it, you're going to keep going, right? And it just depends on how well the players can put themselves in that situation. Are you better at stopping someone than you are from having people, actually win? So like, for example, I was able to stop Jared twice. I'm like, okay, well, I can deal with this. And then I was able to stop Nancy once. And the joke was I was never able to stop Nick. That was like my goal, was to just stop everyone from winning at least once. And it just so happened that I had what I needed in order to stop them. And on top of it, I had to weaken my position a couple times in order to keep the game from ending.
But I think that's an interesting strategic choice that's in the game.
Sure.
I actually do like that about the game. It's one of the things I enjoy is, I can come back later, and usually rather quickly.
Oh, sure.
But I have to make this move now.
So like, for example, I had to vacate a territory where there were 2 sanctuaries.
Right.
Otherwise the game's over, right? We all lose. And I think it was, Jared wins.
Sure.
So I'm now, maybe I had 5 sanctuaries, I think, right? So now I'm at 3 sanctuaries, and it's going to be really difficult for me to jump back in to that 2 sanctuary spot and actually be able to stay there because of the number of troops that are present, the citadels that are whatever, all those things being considered. So I feel like there are going to be some games where everyone's playing well that you're going to have the answers to people's win cons. And there are going to be games where you just don't. Sometimes it just feels like, oh, well, no one had the answer, so do I win? And to me, that felt kind of unsatisfying on the losing end. And on the winning end, it was like, oh, well, yeah, I pulled it off, and I'm just hoping no one has that answer. And so that, to me, that wasn't a particularly satisfying ending. Everything leading up to that, all of the card play, the interesting decisions, the tensions, I really enjoyed. And maybe it really just comes down to that ending and not being fulfilled either in the win or in the loss, if that makes sense. Maybe that's why, that's my kind of hang up with this game.
I guess I can see what you're saying. I just don't agree with it.
Sure.
I feel like when I do win, I feel like I held on to my cards. I played them in the right order. I out-thought the other players. A lot of times I'll sneak into a win after playing towards one win condition and making it look like I'm playing towards one condition, or one win condition. I'll have like an Epic Tales card that lets me completely move in the other direction. So I'll have like baited someone into my territory to fight me, and then I'll just disperse away. I really liked that feeling in the game. And when I lost, it felt like it was close. It was like, oh, I almost had it. And I liked that that feeling of, oh man, if only I had one more turn. Or,
Sure.
But again, if I had a 3.5 hour long game of this, I don't know if I'd feel that way. And that's one of the things that concerned me after seeing you have that experience was, while I haven't felt that way, and it's always felt great and the wins felt great, after 3 hours I would just want it to end.
Yeah, I mean, do you think some of that might be just general fatigue, that you're playing a game that shouldn't really be 3 hours?
Oh, absolutely.
3 hours.
I mean, there were 3 rounds in that 4-player game where we kind of looked at each other and were like, oh, this is going to be another tie this round, we have to go again. And again, I don't know that that slog is necessarily a quarter case. I think that it's going to make up enough of a percentage of games over a long enough period of time that it's a concern. I've had quick games of this, right? And that's the other concern is if you're playing with someone who's not paying attention and can accidentally just like, oh, whoops, I let you in. That's a concern too, although I haven't really encountered that. Everyone's always been on top of...
I do agree that can be a concern. This game, more than most, does rely on other players to be on top of it.
Right. And so for the most part, that 4-player game, we were all kind of like, ugh, this is not great. Again, I've played the quicker 3-player, quicker 2-player game, and I was always interested. I was always engaged in making these decisions and feeling like I'm making good decisions and being kind of tricksy and using tactical passes. But for whatever reason, it was still like, I mean, I definitely said, okay, I'm enjoying this a lot more at 3 players than I am at 4 players.
3 is definitely the sweet spot.
Yeah, I would agree totally. My 4-player experience, I didn't clock it. It was probably an hour and a half tops. Okay. So I haven't had that experience that you did with the 3-hour slog. But I do agree with you. That potential can be there.
What about the theme? Is this a thematic game?
Kind of. I mean, we talked about the minis, about the different sculpts for them, about how they're not all just a bunch of dudes with swords. And the artwork's really nice, and I especially those epic tale cards. And I think in the rule book where they have the descriptions of the epic tale cards helps contribute that as well. I think it's pretty well done. Did I ever feel like I was conquering the Scottish Highlands? I don't know, but I think I really enjoy the theme on this.
I like the theme a lot too. I'm not sure if I think it's overly thematic. It's certainly no blood rage when it comes to theme.
Sure.
Get super sucked into it, but yeah, I mean, I was a warlord or chieftain or whatever, trying to influence the land and take control. Be the next pretender for the throne.
Well, and what was interesting too, like you mentioned earlier, Matt, is they kind of had explanations for the different epic deed, the different gods, and like what that represented and meant. But yeah, it more theme than some, but not a lot.
Right.
I agree.
And I feel like Kemet and Cyclades probably pull off the thematic elements better.
I definitely feel it a lot more in Cyclades. Kemet's not particularly thematic for me either.
Okay.
They're about the same. I mean, I like the theme in both, but I'm not dragged in by either one. Cyclades has it though, for sure.
Well, let's hear what the guild has to say. So Megan Axer says, this was one of my favorite releases from last year. I really enjoyed this version of drafting and was very impressed by how well it scales from 2 to 4. Dudes on the map games and drafting games don't always translate well into something enjoyable for only 2 players, but Inis works so well. Aside from that, the art is absolutely beautiful and everything comes together in a stellar package. She gives it a 5 out of 6.
Scott Sexton says, Inis is a very solid dudes on a map game that takes a very unique spin on combat and board presence. I'd be oversimplifying things to say that this game feels like Cyclades with drafting replacing the auction mechanism. Inis feels like it belongs in the Matagot library and offers enough excellent mechanisms that is worthy of owning in a collection for anyone not turned off by dude-style games. Like many games, Inis will flourish if you have the right group of players at the table. This is a great game to play with people who are able to take quick turns and can also share and witty table talk. This game doesn't fire any dudes on the map games from my collection, and it doesn't top my list of favorite games, but it does make for a nice change of pace game to add to my rotation. Duke's score, 5 out of 6.
Chris G says, Inis is one of my favorite designs of last year. Subtle is the word for this game, except the gorgeous psychedelic art. The actions all feel understated but extremely satisfying, even when highly situational. The win conditions lead to multiple paths to victory for cunning players who can time their big move to perfection. Ultimately, this feels like the thinking gamer's Blood Rage. The decisions are so much more tense and tantalizing. It's Blood Rage's gameplay, but rather than bludgeoning each other with increasingly large hammers, it's a fencing match on a tightrope. Every move matters.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that.
That's
I
the
agree.
perfect description. That's exactly how I feel about
I
the game.
agree with that.
So a negative take, Ian Kissel says, for me, a lot went wrong with this. I hated the flow of the game where one player declares, I can win, and everyone else beats them down. This goes on 4 to 5 rounds until someone mercifully makes a mistake and you can't stop the winner. I found this to be a slog. I also didn't really like drafting the actions for the round. Finally, the art style looks great on the cards, but terrible on a whole box. I'd rate it a 3, although I doubt I will ever play it again. So mostly good from the guild with some not so good. Well, let's do some final thoughts. Let's do mine first, since we kind of know where I'm going with this. There's so much here I wanted to like, and so much I did like. I mean, like I said, all of the different pieces of this I really enjoyed. But for whatever reason, it didn't come together in a way that I loved. I wish that there were more ways to get the epic deeds, and not a lot. I don't want a lot of it. That's one of the things that I liked about Kemet, is that you are getting permanent victory points. Yeah, there are temporary points that exchange hands, but there's that slow progression to permanent points where eventually you're all kind of reaching that tipping point.
So you're talking about the D tiles, not the epic tail cards.
What did I say?
You said epic deeds.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
just clarifying.
Sorry, the details.
Okay,
Yeah,
absolutely.
sorry. So Cyclades, on the other hand, reminded me a lot of this in that it's so tug of war-y. It's so beat up the leader, take what they have, and now you have it, and it went on too long. What Cyclades did eventually, though, was it had the Titans expansion that fixed a lot of that and made it feel like it had more of a definitive end that you were progressing and building towards. So my worry is that, yeah, you can have a quick game of this, and that's great, but the slog is very much a reality. And Cyclades had a slog to it, or could have a slog to it too, the Titans fixed. So I feel like if this has a Titans expansion, some way to make the deed tiles more prevalent, and not a lot, because you don't want to end a game with like 4 of them, right? That would be crazy. That would be too much. But at least that there was some kind of permanency that you could build towards a little bit faster to ensure that slog doesn't happen. Yeah, I don't know. So this is going to be a 3. We rate here on the Dukes a 6-point rating scale. 1 is poorly designed but playable, not necessarily fun. A 6 is an all-time favorite that's a contender for the top 10. And for me, this is a 3. Game is okay, not exciting, will play in the right situation. And that's certainly true. The big difference between, say, a 3 and a 4 is that a 4, I want to have access to this game. Either I own it or it's at Empire or whatever. I was thinking, am I going to get rid of this game at our upcoming Gamers Garage sale on February 4th? I don't think I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to hold on to this because maybe there'll be an expansion that might make me want to keep this and make me want to like this game more. I think that there are other games that I'm going to want to play. They're going to give me similar feelings. They're going to be more complicated. They're not going to be as streamlined or as clean as this. I mean, that's certainly a plus to this game. There are so many pluses to this game. It's that Seven Wonders Duel comparison for Alex, that he should have liked it much more than he did. And for some reason, I feel like I should like this much more than I do. And it's not just that 4-player slog, but even the other plays of this, I'm just like, this is fine. But I'm going to want to take out Kemet before this. I'm going to want to take out Cyclades before this. And others certainly. So I'm disappointed in myself more than the game, I think. But yeah, so it's a 3. Game is okay, not exciting. We'll play in the right situation.
Well, for me, when I first saw Inis, I thought, this might be the dudes on a map game for me. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm not a huge dudes on a map guy. I like them, I play them, but I'm just not a huge fan, especially because I tend to play a lot with my family, and that's not really big for them either. But Inis was pretty much everything I thought it was going to be. The gorgeous artwork, the unique theme, and the really clever card drafting. I felt a really nice balance, very elegantly designed, and not just, one of those shove all your plastic dudes into the center of the map and roll a bunch of dice types of games. So for me, it is a very solid 4. A good game worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the Duchy. I'm glad to have it in my collection. I didn't have any dudes on a map game in my collection. This one fills that hole in my collection really nicely.
Very cool.
You know, this game is something that came down between a 4 and a 5 for me. I really like it, and I really liked it a lot more before I saw your play of it. I was really leaning towards a 5. The decisions I was making while playing, the tension I felt that I just don't get in other dudes on a map games, just because of how close it constantly feels, and how it made me feel clever all the time.
Sure.
Really made me want to give it a 5, but I do agree that it is problematic that it can turn into a slog like that. And because you've had that experience more than once, and because I've seen it, on online comments, concerns me, and I do think that maybe it needs a slight tightening when it comes to the endgame conditions. So I think for now, I'm going to come down on a 4, which is a good game, worth playing, just not all the time, and belongs in the Duchy. I'm going to be keeping it. It might go up, even without an expansion. I might decide that it deserves that 5.
Sure.
But for now, it gets the 4, and I do hope to see an expansion. I've heard it's selling really well. I know it did really well this last year. It's not quite as good as Cry Havoc, which I think is my favorite dudes on the map of last year. But it's up there. I like it a lot. I do recommend it. Check it out.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for our review of Inis. 3 from Sean, and then a 4 from David and Matt. The holidays are over, and hopefully we all got all the board games we wanted. We've read the rules, we've punched the cardboard, and for some of us, we've put all the components into little baggies. Little baggies, people. Our loved ones took time and energy to find out what games we're craving, and we're going to show our appreciation by putting their gifts into baggies? We could do better than that. Instead, check out all the amazing, high-quality, laser-cut inserts from MeepleRealty.com. These inserts are engineered to streamline the setup and breakdown of some of your favorite games, as well as facilitate the gameplay. Treat those games in your life right with a Meeple Realty insert. They've got inserts for some of the hottest titles from 2016, including Scythe, Terraforming Mars, Millennium Blade, Star Wars Rebellion, and many more. I've been talking with the Meeple Realty crew, and they have some hot new inserts ready to come out in 2017. Oh boy, I cannot wait to tell you about them. Go to MeepleRealty.com to find exactly what you're looking for to store your games in style. So this week in our Dukes Double Take, we're not looking back at a game review because a year ago, we gave you a top 6 list, our top 6 designers. So given that we're kind of doing something different with this episode, we've got, some local guests. I wasn't quite sure with the 3 of us how long things were going to take. So we're kind of doing a discussion topic and Double Take combined for time, but also just whatever. We'll see how this goes. So last year, my top 6 designers, and just quickly, number 6 was Carl Chudik, Glory to Rome, Mottainai, etc. Jamie Stegmaier, Viticulture, Euphoria, and Scythe. Eric Lang, Blood Rage, XCOM, Arcadia Quest, 40K Conquest. Richard Garfield was my number 3, who's designed a little game called Magic the Gathering. Not sure if anyone's heard of that. Number 2, Uwe Rosenberg, Bonanza, Agricola, Le Havre, Glass Road, so many more. And then my number 1 was Stefan Feld, design games like Notre Dame, Macau, Luna, a little game called Castles of Burgundy. So those are my 6. Chudik, Stegmaier, Lang, Garfield, Rosenberg, and Feld. Alex's top 6, Reiner Knizia, Lost Cities, Raw, Samurai. Mike Fitzgerald, Baseball Highlights 2045. First mention, yes. Vlada Chvátil was his number 4, Codenames, Galaxy Trucker, Dungeon Pets. Number 3, Stefan Feld. Number 2, Uwe Rosenberg. And then number 1, Antoine Bauza, Seven Wonders, Takenoko, Hanabi, Terran Meeple City, etc. So I reached out to Alex. I sent him a carrier pigeon, which is how that's not true. He's on Facebook all the time. I feel like I talk to him more now than I did when he was here.
What does that say about your friendship?
Well, he has more time now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's totally it.
Yeah. So I asked him, okay, how would your list change? And basically what happened was Vlada Chvátil got kicked off, and Alexander Pfister is now his number 1 designer, which, like I mentioned earlier in the show, I figured Alexander Pfister would probably be showing up on both of our revised lists. For me, my list is pretty much the same, except I'm kicking off Eric Lang. Sorry, Eric. You're still a very, very close honorable mention. And Alexander Pfister would come in as my number 4. I wouldn't expect a lot to necessarily change in a year, but Alexander Pfister, a year ago, we had certainly played enough of his games, but just the ride that he had been on with all of the hit games, and then you've got finally plays of Mombasa and Great Western Trail, and I'm just like, yeah, this guy has got to be on my list.
He seems like he's come out of nowhere for me. I really didn't hear any buzz about him. I mean, I know that he won some awards last year. Or I guess 2 years ago now.
Well, 2 years in a row.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't really, for whatever reason, pay much attention when Broom Service won. And this last year, I played pretty much everything he's put out. I played Port Royal, I played Oh My Goods, Great Western Trail, and
Mombasa?
Yeah, Mombasa. And I like all of them. They're all fantastic. Oh, and of course Broom Service as well, which I also really, really enjoyed. So I went from having played nothing by him to having played most of his games, and he's really impressive. He's a great designer for sure.
Yeah, I think he's really good too. There's a very his games are very clever and very subtle in a way as well. Like you, he kind of came out of nowhere for me as well. I first heard of him with Broom Service, and I was like, oh, that looks cute, and just kind of ignored it. But I've enjoyed all his games. The only one I haven't played that I really want to play is Mombasa.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying that one.
Yeah, it's really solid. So yeah, he won the Spiel des Jahres in 2015 for Broom Service, and then again the next year for Isle of Skye.
Which is, I didn't mention that, but that game's fantastic.
Yeah. I think that's my favorite.
That's my favorite of his titles too, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I think Great Western Trail is probably my favorite.
I think I need to play that again. My first play had some bad AP in it, and it lasted about 5 hours too long. I like the game. It just I don't think I played it with the right group.
Yeah, I've just played it once. I need to give it another play too.
And I do need more plays of Mombasa. I've only played Mombasa once. I have a copy upstairs. It's in shrink that needs to get to the table because I really, really enjoyed my first play.
Mombasa's great.
I think it's fantastic. So why don't you guys tell me some of your favorite designers?
Well, I'd like to give a shout out to Vital Lacerda.
Yeah.
Who seems to be killing it lately. I backed the Vinhos Deluxe version, which is just absolutely gorgeous and just a really great game. The refined rules for the 2016 vintage, I think, is terrific. Kanban is another game I really like as well, one that I kind of would like to get on the table a little more. He's got Lisboa, which just kind of wrapped up Kickstarter.
Did you back that?
So ago. I did.
I did as well.
I'm super excited for that. I find the theme just fascinating. Like I had no idea about the history of that city, just being completely leveled by natural disasters and the process to rebuild it. And then he's also, I believe, I've read that CO2 is kind of getting the deluxe treatment as well, like Vinhos did. And also, he's got a Mars game in the works.
Of course, because you have to. You have to have a Mars game.
It seems like if you're a Euro designer at this point, you have to have a Mars game in the works.
So yeah, I also like the Gallerist as well. That's another one I would really like to get back on the table soon. But he's been kind of killing it lately.
Yeah, Vital Lacerda is excellent. He's certainly an honorable mention for me.
Lacerda is a gentleman that I really need to sit down and play some of his games. I haven't played anything but CO2, which I liked a lot.
Okay.
So one day I'll hopefully get some more of his stuff on the table. For my first mention for designer will be Bruno Cathala.
Yeah.
He's incredibly solid is kind of the way I'd like to explain his designs. Every game that has his name on it, I enjoy. It may not be my favorite game, but I like the game. He recently did King Domino, which I thought I would despise, or was worried that I would despise just from description alone. But, it had his name on it, so I thought I'd give it a try, and I love it.
Just a little programming note, a King Domino First Impressions review will be on our YouTube channel this week.
Make sure you like and subscribe. My favorites are Cyclades, Abyss, and the glorious Five Tribes. Yeah. I'm glad that Sean came around on that game. It is so good. It is among my favorites. Probably a top 10 game for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like his work as well. Like you said, very solid. King Domino really surprised me when Matthew brought it out a few weeks ago at Dukes of Dice Wednesday night meetup. Wasn't sure what to expect, but I really had a good time playing it.
I think it's a favorite filler for me. I really like it.
Yeah, it's really solid.
Really good. And I'm a big fan of Abyss as well.
Yeah.
I
think it's kind of criminally overlooked a little bit.
I think so too. It kind of got lost in the shuffle there,
well,
I think.
Great art. Everyone loves the art.
Oh, the art's fantastic.
I always hear
Beautiful.
that about it, but it's a fantastic game.
Yeah, I haven't played it, and Nick Hayes on the Guild, and I think some others have been like, you need to play Abyss.
Oh, really? You haven't played it?
I have not played
we'll
Abyss.
Play that sometime.
Yeah, we should play it.
I didn't realize you both know how to play, so yeah, definitely. I'd like to bring that out.
Another one I'd like to give a shout out to. I know it may be a little passe in some heavier board gaming circles, but Alan R. Moon.
Sure.
I'm a big fan of Ticket to Ride. I'll always play Ticket to Ride. But I think his games are just they're obviously tremendously successful, but they're always fun to play. And the variety of maps and little rule tweaks here and there really add to that. I recently got to play another game of his, Airlines Europe, which I think is also, as well as kind of, it's route building, but there's also a stock share element to it. I really enjoyed that one as well. But just wanted to give him...
I was actually going to shout out Airlines Europe if you didn't. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Alex, if you're listening to this, play that game. You'll love it.
Yeah,
I
it's
promise.
really good. I think you'd really like it.
Yeah, it's a great game. And Moon is a great designer.
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
he's terrific.
I believe you killed me in the last game of Ticket to Ride I played.
That's
Congrats
right,
on
we
that. Yeah,
did.
you destroyed me.
We played the 10th anniversary, if I remember correctly.
It was great. It was a good time.
Yeah.
I hadn't played that in years, so that was a nice experience. Next designer I'm going to give a shout out to is Reiner Knizia. I know that he's kind of fallen off of his designing horse, perhaps, but I just can't overlook the design pedigree he had with Tigris and Euphrates and Amun-Re and Ra and Samurai and Schottentotten and just countless games that were great. Blue Moon City was great. I actually like Blue Moon a lot too. I think that kind of gets the short end of the stick sometimes from some people. There's a lot more depth than War, Tom Vassell. I promise you. But I like his designs a lot. Tigris is probably my favorite, followed up by Amun-Re, which is getting a reprint this year.
Yeah.
A lot of his stuff is getting reprinted. And if you haven't played...
By Tasty Minstrel Games.
Oh
sponsor
boy.
of the show.
Man, I'm just sponsoring you like crazy, Sean. You're welcome. Am I getting royalties, please?
No.
Oh, dang. Anyway, he's great. I really do recommend, if you haven't played his older stuff, that you really give him a try. Just solid mechanics. The only auction games I really care for that I've played. So yeah, check him out. Reiner Knizia.
I really love Reiner Knizia as well. He's probably my number 2 designer of all time. I'm a big fan of the auction trilogy, Medici, Ra, and Modern Art.
Thank you for correctly pronouncing Medici.
I haven't played Medici.
It's quite
so-
good. I have it. I'll bring it sometime. We'll play it.
sometime.
Yeah.
Public service announcement. It's not Medici.
It's Medici.
It's Medici.
Totally. He's got, I like his area control. Well, they're not really area control games, but they kind of are. Like Tigris and Euphrates, Samurai, Chin. I don't know if you played that one.
Chin is great.
Yeah.
Chin's fantastic.
I really like
That's an
that
overlooked
as well.
one. That was actually pretty recent for him, at least. I think it was like
2012, I believe.
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah, not too long ago.
Very good game.
Yeah, and of course, the 2-player stuff, the Lost Cities, the Battle Line. Yeah, just terrific. I'm a huge fan. Huge fan.
Cool.
Let me throw in, we mentioned him earlier, but he is my favorite designer. 2 of his games are in my top 10 of all time. That is Vlada Chvátil. He's a guy who has just a really wide range of types of games, from party games like Bunny Moose Moose, all the way up to Through the Ages, which is just like a bona fide classic.
Oh, yeah.
I love that game a lot. I wish I had an opportunity to play it more. But my favorite game of his is Mage Knight, which I kind of touched on earlier with the Star Trek Frontiers discussion earlier. And it's just such a really satisfying, brain-burning puzzle. I just keep coming back to it. I just want to learn how to work that puzzle better and better and get better and better at the game. Also a big fan of Galaxy Trucker. That's one of my top 10 games as well. Like I mentioned earlier, I like games where you build stuff. Well, this is a game where you build stuff and it gets smashed to pieces. But it's always funny, and you get to make fun of other people's builds as well, and it's always a good time. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of Vlada. My favorite.
Vlada's great. I think I need to sit down and play Through the Ages, especially the new version.
Oh, it's so
yeah.
good.
Everyone's telling me
Yeah,
it's
Oh,
great.
man.
Someone teach me.
Okay.
Anyone from Wednesday nights, please help me
Yeah.
out. What really impresses me about Vlada Chvátil is his just design range. He makes things like code names, but then he can make something as heavy as Through the Ages.
Yeah.
He makes great games, or great real-time games like Space Alert, or the front end of Galaxy Trucker. And like that's just really impressive to me.
Absolutely.
He's definitely a great designer. The next designer I'm going to mention is Stefan Feld. He's one of my all-time favorites. I guess he gets some criticism for being the opposite of Vlada Chvátil, in that he kind of makes a point salad game and then throws the theme on it and calls it a day. But you know what? I like that. I like his designs. I like how clever they make me feel. In particular, Castles of Burgundy and In the Year of the Dragon, which is also getting a reprint.
Yeah.
Check it out. I love it.
So you can either play In the Year of the Dragon, or you can just punch each other in the face, and it has the same feel. But I like it. I like it.
Yeah,
It's super mean.
but sometimes you just need to punch your friends in the face. I mean, come on.
Yeah. What are friends for?
It's a mean game for certain, but I feel like it's one of his older titles that's a little overlooked. It isn't as brought up as often as like Notre Dame.
Right.
But it's great, and if you don't mind a little conflict in your Euro, I really recommend In the Year of the Dragon.
Yeah, I might have to check that out. I haven't played a ton of Felds, but the ones I played I've really liked. I really like Aquasphere. That's a fun one I can get to the table pretty easily. And of course, Castles of Burgundy is just a classic.
Yeah. No, it's just fantastic.
I haven't played Aquasphere. That's one Alex wants me to play.
Oh, it's good.
I'll get around to it.
It's good.
Meh.
You don't like it?
Nope. Also, by a sponsor of the show, Casey Mr. Games.
Yeah, no, I like that one. I kind of like the programming aspect of it. Also on my list, I have Antoine Bauza, who's just really solid designer. I'm a huge fan of Seven Wonders. I think I played my copy to death almost. I might have to get a new one because I never bothered to sleeve it. It's getting a little worn out, but I really, really like that one. I also like Tokaido a lot.
Oh, yeah.
That's a very peaceful Zen-like game about taking a vacation along the coastline of Japan. And it's kind of one of those goods. You can play it with just about anybody. It's pretty easy to pick up, kind of a set collection thing.
Have you added Crossroads to that? Have you ever tried that out?
I have. I don't quite like it as much. I think I like the base game without the expansion. But it's kind of one of those good, also Into the Night games. I think after you've done a really hardcore session, just get that out and have a little relaxing time there. Takenoko, great little tile lane game where it's set collection as well, but you're kind of pitting a panda who likes to eat bamboo against a bamboo gardener. It's got really cute pieces too. That's a fun one as well. I'm really interested in his upcoming collaboration with Eric Lang, the Victorian Masterminds.
Right. Yeah.
That looks pretty cool. I'm keeping my eye on that one.
I think Bauza is a designer that I unintentionally overlook when I think about designers I like. He's incredibly solid, and he really is. He's mastered making games for the gateway gamer. I think.
I agree with that.
Every game I've played, he is a gateway level game that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
He might have heavier stuff. I just don't think I've experienced it, though I'm not sure.
I think maybe Ghost Story is a little bit heavier.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Insanely hard.
But I think for the most part, I really enjoy his gateways. I feel like his gateways have
great.
enough in there for a veteran gamer to not just be like, oh, okay, well, I'm just doing this. No, it's like to this day, I love Seven Wonders. I love Takenoko. Like Takenoko is, I think, just such an elegantly designed game. I love it so much, and it's a good gateway. It's a great gateway.
Yeah, it's terrific.
All right, well, next I'm going to talk about Uwe Rosenberg, who I'm sure everyone who listens to this podcast is well aware of. But he's a great designer. He's not as consistent as some of the ones on my list, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of Le Havre. It's probably my favorite game of all time. I want to play it pretty much all the time. It's great. I really liked Patchwork a lot. The things I don't really care for are his Agricolas and his Cavernas. I didn't really care for either one all that much. And I don't think I've played his whole game library. Glass Road, though, is another one I want to mention that I don't feel like gets as much attention as a lot of his other games. It's fantastic. Only complaint there is setup time.
So I actually ranked my Uwe games.
Oh, did you?
I did this on our Slack, our local Slack group.
I think I actually talked about that with you briefly.
So I've played 12 of his games. So my number 12 was Mercator, 11 Cottage Garden, 10 Agricola, 9 All Creatures Big and Small, 8 Bonanza, 7 Feast for Rodin, 6 Or at Labora, 5 Glass Road, 4 Patchwork, 3 Caverna, 2 Fields of Arla. My number 1 is Le Havre.
I also need to get a play of Fields of Arla.
Oh, it's so good.
That said, Bonanza, which is an older one, is fantastic.
Oh,
it's such a good game. I really that's one of the ones I bring out to teach to non-gamers pretty often.
Yeah, no, Bonanza's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Rosenberg as well. In fact, he's the last person I have on my list here. Feast for Odin is one I really want to play. Really want to get that on the table. I haven't had a chance yet, but unlike David, I actually like the Agricolas and Cavernas.
Most people do. I feel like I'm in the minority.
Yeah,
there,
I like those harvesting type games. I think Le Havre is terrific too. That's one I've played the app a lot. I haven't actually played the physical game yet, and that's one I'd like to get on the table sometime soon.
I'm actually gonna, even though I already own the game, I'm gonna buy the reprint when it comes out because my copy's in such bad shape.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited for that.
All right, well, let's go to the guild. So Jeff Ebner, who's kind of been helping out with the show notes, he went above and beyond because on our guild, on our Dukes on Deck, we had everyone kind of chime in with their 6 designers. So he used math. Yay, math.
Yay, math.
And so here's kind of the guild top 6. Number 6, Bruno Cathala. Tied were Eric Lang and Stefan Feld. So they're kind of 4 and 5. Number 3, Uwe Rosenberg. Number 2, Jamie Stegmaier. And then number 1, Antoine Bauza. With some honorable mentions, Richard Garfield, Alexander Pfister, Vital Lacerda, Vlad Chvátil, Simone Luciani, who designed one of my favorite games, Zolkin, Voyages Marco Polo. And then it's really good. And then Chuduk was mentioned, Rudiger Dorn, Mike Fitzgerald, Ryan Knizia, Faduti, Ryan Lockett, and others. So thanks for doing that. And yeah, everyone kind of chimed in there. If you want to go see all of the different top 6s, I mean, there's certainly a lot of overlay, a lot of duplication with Stegmaier and Rosenberg and Feld, and but then there's some others, like for example, Steve O'Rourke mentioned Phil Walker Harding, Matt Leacock. I mean, none of us mentioned Matt Leacock.
I mean, I think Rudiger Dorn and Bruno Faiduti are 2 that I didn't even think about, but deserve at least a mention. They're both great designers that have made countless good games, and I don't think about them for whatever reason when I think about a list.
Yeah. So I know, like for me, and I talked about this in the episode last year, I kind of think of a I know for me, I kind of think of a game designer as a director, and there are certain movies, like if a director is attached to it, I'm more likely to see.
Sure.
I don't know if that's
Are you going into auteur theory here?
No. I'm just.
We could talk about some auteur theory.
What do you think? Do you think that is that a
no? It's
good
absolutely
comparison?
true. Absolutely. I would never have looked into King Domino if Bruno Cathala's name wasn't on it.
Sure.
Which is an example from earlier in the show. So if a designer has their name on it, I'm a lot more likely to check it out, even if it's something I wasn't interested in or wouldn't have been without that name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. There are certain designers you see their name and you kind of get excited because you love those games they've produced in the past and you get excited about what they've got coming up.
Sure.
Like Jamie Stegmaier with Charterstone coming up is a game that might not have been on my radar if it weren't for Scythe.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So a couple guild comments. Michael Farnbrook says, I haven't played nearly enough games to do a valid top 6 designers list, but of the games I've played, my favorite is clearly Vlad Chvátil for his ability to design games of completely different weights and playstyles that seem to all work. And that's kind of what we talked about. Steve O'Rourke says, my collection of games owned and played doesn't have too many repeat designers. There are a lot of great designers that I've only played a single game from. And he mentions Feld and Rosenberg. So to be fair, I'll just pull from the ones that are duplicates.
Jesse Metcalf says, as for designers, it is a lot like my music collection. I don't really follow or collect any one creator's work. I do like Uwe Rosenberg's creations, especially Bonanza and Caverna, and recently a reprint of At the Gates of Liang. Richard Garfield is another creator I love. Magic the Gathering profoundly changed the gaming world. Gil Hova gets my profound gratitude for The Networks, which is probably my favorite game of the year. 2106. He's from the future.
Oh, man.
2016, I believe, is what was meant there. And certainly in my top 10.
Josh Giblin says, a couple of designers that I often see overlooked in lists like this are Simone Luciani and Virginio Gili. With a resume like Zolkin, Marco Polo, Grand Austria Hotel, and now Lorenzo Il Magnifico, they put together some of my favorites, and I hope they continue to do so together.
I have not had the chance to play Lorenzo Il Magnifico, but I really want to. So local buddy Cameron Gibson says, I feel like I need to get one more year under my belt before I can start ranking designers, but I feel Uwe Rosenberg, Stefan Feld, and Alexander Pfister would be on that list. And I'm also curious, like, given that Alex and I will promote a lot of Pfister and Rosenberg and Feld games, how much that has an effect on the local play group.
I think it definitely has an effect.
Yeah.
I mean, just like how Mottainai is big here in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
I don't think that would have been the case without the two of you. So.
And then, so there's kind of a counterpoint from Chris G. He says, I don't do top designers lists. I understand why they exist, but I have virtually no overlap in designers in my top 25 games. So it doesn't really apply to me. Great designers deserve recognition for sure, but I don't really buy by designer reputation. Perhaps it's because more celebrated designers focus on traditional Euros and I'm a hybrid player myself.
And Ian Kissel says, this was a bit hard to make, as I am a bit picky in my games, and so a lot of my top games are the only game by the designer I like. I am also not a fan of Rosenberg, Feld, Chvátil, Lacerda, or Pfister, so that takes away a lot of the top options.
Wow.
You know, I thought I was going to be like the most scolded person for not liking Scythe, but you might have taken the cake there.
So yeah, I feel like just to pile on Ian there, I feel like of my top 100 games, if you took out Rosenberg,
There'd be
Feld,
like 2 games
Shavato,
left.
Lacerda, Pfister, that literally
Yes.
probably makes up 30 games.
It's a murderer's row of designers. It's really, I'm a little shocked that there's not one in there he cares for.
All right. So, yeah, I think it's interesting to kind of look back. I mean, I don't know that necessarily there's going to be a lot of change in a top designer list from year to year. I mean, certainly someone can just kind of not suddenly explode on the scene like Alexander Pfister, but you just kind of get a better appreciation for the body of work.
You suddenly discover them, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like finding a new director that you didn't know
Sure.
before, right?
Yeah.
Sure. And I think that there kind of needs to be a point of critical mass, right? So like last year I had probably played 4 of Pfister's designs
Oh, really?
and I loved them,
Mhm.
but it was just kind of that critical mass of, boy, I really love them. Oh, and Mombasa and, Great Western Trail that just kind of builds up to that.
Well, I think that helped your appreciation of him too, just because you're the heavier game guy.
Sure,
So
sure.
he'd released a lot of light to medium stuff, and then suddenly he comes out with those 2 heavy games in the same year, right? Was Mombasa the same year?
No, year before.
Oh, it was the year before. Okay.
Yeah, year before.
Well, still, I mean, one after another.
Oh yeah.
And
No,
so-
it's very solid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very solid. All right, well, let's before we wrap this episode up, let's talk about the runners up for naming the episode. So Jimmy DM90, he brought us doubling down on designers. So Irish theme there. Steve O'Rourke, the name father, calling this one Gale Force, Gael, like Gaelic. Pole Price. Here we go. Inis&nbsp Designers. A little take on was it Iron Butterflies?
Iron Butterfly.
Inagata
Yeah.
Davida.
Mhm.
And then Chris Schreiber, Clandestined, which is pretty clever. And then our buddy Matthew Ward, King of the Hill, which I guess makes sense. We're talking about Inish, kind of a King of the Hill style game. And then
our best designers. Yeah.
and then best designers. So thank you everyone for helping out naming the episode. We really do appreciate it. So gentlemen, any last things you want to say before we sign off?
I just want to say thanks for having me on the show. I had a good time today and get to talk about my favorite designers. And,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here. I like getting to talk games, spew my opinions out on the internet. So hopefully this was enjoyable for you all. I can't fill Alex's shoes, both literally or figuratively. So
Are your feet too small or too big?
Probably too small. He has boats, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I really do appreciate you guys helping out. I mean, so it's kind of interesting. We always have the need to get plays in of a certain game, and so you guys got to kind of see what that's like. And so I appreciate you guys taking the time to make sure you got enough plays and coming on and helping out during Alex's hiatus. So it's
Yeah,
a
it wasn't
big
a
help.
problem at all. It was enjoyable. It was a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made you guys play games. Oh no.
Yeah. And read rule books.
Right,
Don't
yeah.
forget.
I had to
Yeah.
do both for the
Don't
first time in a
forget.
while.
Yeah, you hear that, Alex? People on the show read rule books. So that's going to do it then for episode 127, titled by Mike Risley, I'ma Let You Inish, But Pfister. That is probably the cleverest title we've ever had. So congrats, Mike.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite title. Thinking back.
All right, well, until next time, this is Sean,
And David.
And Matt.
and a hearty Hail Hydra from all of us. Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on January 21st, 2017. Our theme music is provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out dicetowernetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to dukesofdice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice, join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild, find us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to Guild members Jeff Epner and Jeff Rademacher for production assistance. And thanks to our sponsors Tasty Minstrel Games and Meeple Realty. Check out their awesome titles at playteamg.com, and for high-quality board game inserts, check out meeplerealty.com. Think inside the box. We'll see you back here next week. Until then, as Alex would say, game on!
On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you that I didn't use the H is silent joke about Inish?
Oh, goodness. A 10.
Yes, way not to use it.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't want to embarrass you. I'm bad with the dad jokes sometimes, so
You sure are.
I'm the worst.
No, it's all right.
You can
I can edit it out. It's beautiful. And then my biggest fear is I always like think I delete it. Well, no, like it's like, oh, I deleted it, and then I accidentally like Control Z'd.